So I accidentally skipped an episode, episode 7, while I was making my videos. But I'm back to reinsert it in its place. So anyways, so episode 7 was a really good episode. Now it starts with, it's like basically, so there's a Jedi and a Padawan, and I think in this episode it was like, I think the Sith Order had fallen, but there were like still, I guess like rogue Siths out there, or like people who were working and walking in the dark side still out there. So this man, I think his name was Taijin, and his Padawan was named Dan, and they were sent to the Outer Realm, I guess, to like explore or like check on some stuff. This man senses a disturbance in the force. Like literally, they're just flying. He's like, and like he's like, well, you know what I mean. But anyways, he's literally like, they're like flying, and he's like, oh, wait a minute, And Dan is like, wait, what's up? And he's like, I sense a disturbance in the force. Like there's somebody out there who's like, they feel full of bad energy. Like they just walking with the dark side. And he was like, oh, really? We're gonna get to fight somebody bad? A Sith? You think it's a Sith? And he was like, well, I don't know yet, but we're gonna find out soon, I guess. And he was so excited to find out who this was. He was so excited. He just, he was young and excited. But it's, teacher was saying, like, don't be too, rambunctious. Don't just, rush into battle. You gotta take your time. Just basically, he's the wise man giving him wise words, And so I really like the dynamic and the relationship between Dan and Taijin, because, of course that was his teacher, and he was respectful and he listened to him, but they also had like a friendly, playful relationship. Like when he was talking about you're the best teacher ever, or whatever he said. And he was like, oh, do you really think that? And he was like, no, I was being sarcastic. And he was like, just pretend like I didn't hear that part. But their relationship was funny, and it was cool. Like how they had a really nice dynamic with each other as student and teacher. So they get to this planet, and they're talking to the natives, and then I guess he was explaining to them, like, I think I felt like a disturbance in the force, and there might be somebody here that y'all don't want here. And so they were like talking about something. I think that's how they found out that there was somebody, yes indeed, there. So he was like, can I go up the mountain? Like, can the kids take me up the mountain? Because he had like made friends with the kids. He was like real friendly and real sweet to the kids. So he was like, okay, sure, but that's probably where the Sith is. And he said, look, if he's up there, you need to be careful. You need to call me, stay in contact with me. And he was like, okay. So he goes up there, and of course the Sith's up there, and I was so afraid that this man was about to lose his Padawan. I was like, oh god. But he didn't. He injured him, and I was like, because whenever he came out there, he was like, he was like, oh god, look, it's the Sith. So he was like, getting into his, like, I guess his battle stance or whatever, and he was trying to defend himself, and he got injured. And so at first I thought he sliced clean through Dan. I was like, oh, Dan, he's gone. But he just injured him, and so he was like, but there's another one here. He was like, I bet he's your teacher. I bet once I injure you, he'll come to rescue you. I'll just have to wait. So I was like, man, this guy's something else. And so I think he had called him, or he like felt that disturbance. He was like, oh god. So he's like going, he's like, he kept it cool, he wasn't like freaking out like, oh my god, my Padawan, is he okay? Like, he kept it cool. And so he went up there, he sees Dan on the floor, and so Dan was just like, he was hurt, but he was like playing like he was out of there. And so the guy just like steps over him and was like, you're the one who I was looking for, you're the one who I want to fight. He was like, I don't understand what's going on here. So he was like, so what's your story or whatever? So the guy was talking about how apparently, like, well, my brother was saying, like, again, there's lore that really hasn't been too much, explored, even with the movies that we've had with Star Wars. Because apparently, like, they've kind of made it look like the Jedis were good and the Siths were bad. But now in the 3rd episode, with like Anakin being like stuck in the middle, talking about, well, from my perspective, the Jedis are evil. It wasn't like apparently black and white. There were bad people who were Siths, and there were bad people who were Jedis. It wasn't like so black and white, so defined. And so apparently they had, people in the Sith Order that fell out with each other. And apparently I think he had like left the Sith Order before it fell, but he was still evil, so he might as well have been, And so he was like, And so they started fighting, and apparently like he was talking like he almost didn't beat him. And I'm just like, But he was saying like the only reason why he beat him was because he had gotten so old, and even though he was like probably really powerful at one point in time, he was like, listen, Dan, the only reason why I beat him is because he slipped up. He was a little too arrogant. He had gotten older, and he, his senses had dulled, his skill had dulled. Now, if he was like my age, or your age, or in his prime, probably might not have beaten him, probably would have had a hard time beating him. and was just like giving him advice on like what to do, how to be a better, Padawan, be a better Jedi. And like I said, give him that wisdom and knowledge. And I was like, see, this is cool. And so he patches Dan up, and then they basically communicate with the natives. Everything's fine basically, and they get on their ship and they basically leave. And I was like, well, thank God nobody died, because I was scared. I was really scared for Dan whenever he went up there and he confronted that Sith, and the Sith was like, huh. But like, I guess he just, he wanted a fight, with a Jedi, with somebody who was skilled enough to hold his own with him. I guess he didn't really take pleasure in defeating somebody that was like, a Padawan or not necessarily on his level. But anyways, like I said, I just thought the dynamic between them as student and teacher was really funny, and it kind of almost reminded me of, again, Anakin and Obi-Wan before he slipped in. Well, he didn't slip, he walked into the dark side. I don't want to make it seem like he didn't know what was going on. Well, I guess he didn't, because he was like, ushered into the dark side by Palpatine, but still. It was cute, like I said, the dynamic of their relationship, and like they were even dressed like how Obi-Wan and Anakin were dressed when he was a Padawan, and I was like, wow, this is not screaming the both of them. I don't know what is, but that episode was really cool. I liked that one too. But anyways, episode 6. All right, episode 6. No, I take that back. Episode 8. I'm tripping. Episode 8. Now, this episode was deep, and it was really good. It was deep and really good. So basically, this is, I think, the planet that they were on, the Empire. They were doing their stuff again, and they were like, taking over places, infiltrating people, stuff, and they had oppressed some people. And Lop, one of the main characters, cute little, rabbit, I guess she could escape. Like, she was technically like a slave, and she basically escaped, and she was like on the streets. And so Ocho, and her father, just happened to be around. And she was like, oh my God, she's so cute. Can we adopt her and take her home? And I feel like they were treating her like a dog, basically. I was like, oh, so you treating her like a dog? Like, I legit got mad. I was like, first of all, she is a being, okay? Anyways, so she was like, oh, we should adopt her and take her home. At first, he was like, oh, I don't know about all that. Like I said, it was legit like looking at somebody who found a stray dog and was like, hey, let's adopt them and take them home. And then they took a picture, and I thought that was cute. And then they took her home. And 7 years later, she's still with them. She didn't been raised with them. She's a part of the family now. Well, she'd been a part of the family, but, she was being taken care of. Like, that's basically like Ocho's sister, basically. And so it got bad because, these 7 years later, the Empire decided that they wanted to take over, that they wanted to play, well, they just wanted to insert themselves in the situation. Let's just put it that way. And Ocho was like, yeah, okay, fine. Like, I feel like she didn't got to the point where she was like, well, this is going to happen either way. And I like this idea better anyway, so let's just work with them. Versus the dad was like, oh, heck no. Like, we're not letting them come up in here and mess everything up. Oh, no. And I mean, I have to agree with them, because the Empire was evil. Like, the root of evil. And so they bump heads, which, a lot of kids with their parents do, but they bumped heads, and I was like, oh God. And so poor Lop was in the middle of it. Like, she was literally like that one child, like, it's like in the middle of the crossfire of other family members duking it out. She was in the middle of it. And so, I think there was one point in time when the dad was like, I wish she would be more like you, Lop, or whatever, something like that. And so she was riding in like the car with Ocho, and this was like after, like I said, 7 years. So they're like, I guess, teenagers now, maybe like in their getting close to their early 20s. And she was like, look, I don't like to see you and Dad fighting. Maybe somehow you guys can come to like a similar ground, but he's always loved you and he's always gonna love you. And she was like, yeah, I love him too, but he's gotta like, figure out at some point in time that like, he is the past and I am the future, blah 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 blah. That's not exactly what they said verbatim, but I'm just you know what I'm doing ad-lib basically. And so basically she had already convinced herself that she was not gonna listen to their dad no more. As far as she was concerned, she was grown and she was gonna do what she wanted to do. And so she gets to some people who were like, I guess, some of the main leading people from the Empire that was going to occupy that planet, and they were like, you need to tell your father to get on board or else. And she was like, oh, don't worry, I'll get him one way or another. And Lop was like, look, you can't do this. Like, y'all can't do this. And she was like, this is happening despite what? And she basically like leaves the family. She basically falls out so bad that she basically leaves the family. And so Lop goes back home to the dad and was like, I'm sorry, I did the best that I could. And he was like, I don't know where I went wrong with that girl. And he was like, you know what? Like, and then like I said, there was a deep moment because he was like, when you were like growing up, like I might have made it seem like I didn't love you as much as I did Ocho, but that was never the truth, you know. And even now, like I still love you just as much as I love her. And so I feel like that kind of was like a parallel of like, you know, sometimes when people adopt children, sometimes you know, the adopted children may feel like, you know, the parents love their real children more. But you know, there's always those parents, they just know how to do it right. They know how to love their children and not make any differences. Kudos and thank God for those parents. And so basically he was like, here, I'm gonna give this to you. And he basically passes down the family treasure. That, boy, I tell you, they went all out with these doggone lightsabers, man. In this series, they weren't holding back at all. Like the way they designed these weapons, somebody needs a raise. Somebody needs a raise. Anyway, so he was like, I'm passing down the family treasure to you. She's like, are you sure? And he was like, yes, I want you to have it because I want you to have it. And so I was like, girl, he giving you the family treasure. You better tell him thank you and be grateful. And so she takes it and then she goes to confront, well, he had went to go confront Ocho. And Ocho blinded him. And I was like, oh my God, how you do your father like that? Your father. I get that you didn't agree with him. That's fine. You don't have to agree with everything that your parents do. But your father? How you gonna do that to your father? Anyways, and then Locke comes and was like, oh, you didn't cross the line, girl. And then they start fighting. And she was like, how dare you give her the family heirloom? You're just and then that's when I see other things. See, this happens too. When you're not part of the family and you're like adopted or whatever, sometimes I feel like in a lot of families, there's always that one person that when they hate you enough or when they fall out with you, oh, it's all family. Like, oh no, we're all family. Like, it doesn't matter. Oh, sure, you're our half brother. Yeah, you're our adopted sister. You're our family, whatever. Adopted who? Half what? But then when they fall out with you and you don't agree with them, you are never a part of this family. You know, they're quick to remind you. And so I was like, she's wrong for that. She crossed the line. And so they're fighting, and Ocho technically lost. And I was like, see, God don't like ugly, okay? And so she was like, this ain't over. She was like, you're right, it's not. And I'm not going to stop until you're back with our family. And I was like, wow, that's really deep. Because, child, I would have been going for her jugular after she blinded our father. That's just me being honest, okay? I'm like, either you can come back on your legs or we can arrange something else. Like, we can roll you back or drag you back. You choose. And once you choose, there's no going back. So, but anyways, that's just me. But anyways, I thought that was very deep though. Like I said, the whole parallel, like I said, between adopted siblings and half siblings. Like I said, when they get mad and they throw that, oh, we will never, brother, you know, that's totally not okay, by the way. You should definitely not do that if you have half siblings or adopted siblings. Like, do not do that. It's a horrible thing to do. Anyways, tell me what you think in the comments. Let me know how you feel.